Vin Diesel has 4 charges dropped against him, as well as updates of Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, along with all your other pop culture, production, and a little bit of politics. You're live with the guy every day at noon Central. I got my producer Nat over here switching.
Hello.
Okay, let's get right into it. I actually wanted to start with this AI story. Hollywood seems to be coming around to the idea of AI. I think we have a clip. Why don't we? This is from Pop Culture Crisis, and I was watching this morning. It's a very good show. If you don't watch it, I highly recommend it. It's nice because they clip all their segments, so if you don't want to watch the whole thing, which is like 2 hours, you can watch individual segments.
Eventually, we will do once we have time as well. On this channel, we do it on the Spanish channel.
Oh, okay, these headphones I'm having a tough time with. Okay, let's do it.
You ready?
Behind closed doors, execs have seen AI content so lifelike, they're now considering using it to extend old sitcoms. Not reboots, not remakes. We're talking new official episodes made entirely by machines. One exec told me that the next generative AI is so lifelike, studio executives were, quote, scared.
Let's pause it real quick. And we knew AI was going to come in, but this is really the best way to bring it in. You want people to accept it. People are generally going to be somewhat against AI. And if it's a little bit off-putting, they're going to reject it. If you use some of their favorite characters and TV shows, they're going to embrace it without a shadow of a doubt.
But we already see, like, with remakes, people don't like that either. So will they like their, like, classic shows to be extended or changed through AI, not even through the actual people?
Well, I think if it's not written by AI and you have some really creative concepts and creative script writers really fundamentally changing maybe even the themes of these shows, it may be embraced, and you can go into really subcultures and different genres like that. And you'll be able to mix and match characters from shows that are kind of adjacent and things like this. Hollywood's going to have to buy not only the IPs or get the IPs, but also the characters, things like this. So like, let's say if you have Friends, if you have all those actors, they're not all going to say, oh, you can just use my likeness.
No, and Matthew Perry passed away already. So,
well,
but no, if they try to extend Friends, which I'm a huge fan of, and I can quote it anytime, any place, any line, I would not be happy about that. So no, I wouldn't want an extension of Friends. I want it as it is.
But I almost think the people that have passed away, their IPs are going to be the easiest to get because
the estate.
Whoever owns the estate actually can sign it over. A lot of the times the estates don't realize how to really make money off of those IPs anymore. We've seen that with the guy that did the voice of Darth Vader.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, that's correct.
Now, if they did that to Matthew Perry, I'd file a bunch of complaints about it.
Okay, well, let's continue with this thing here.
Of how they could no longer tell the difference between reality and an artificial creation. One company, Fable Studios, just launched Showrunner, an AI platform that lets users create entire TV episodes from a single sentence. Voice animation, dialogue, all auto-generated. That's all according to a report in VentureBeat. And with Hollywood under pressure to cut costs, some studios are now exploring whether to license old IP to AI firms to generate spin-offs, especially outsourcing nostalgia. But there's a legal gray area. The U.S. Copyright Office made it clear in February that AI-generated work isn't protected unless a human makes meaningful creative contributions. But as the tech gets better, the question isn't whether AI can bring back your favorite shows. It's whether you'll still recognize and watch them if you can't tell the difference.
My first question is, like, what does that mean? What is the benchmark?
And that U.S. law that they have to have a creative contribution a human does, that's where the scriptwriters are going to really come forth, I think. It's going to be interesting because a lot of scriptwriters are obviously going to use AI to assist them and things like that. And so it's going to be interesting what scriptwriters, how they adopt AI.
Well, you know my opinion about AI and how it makes everybody lazy and sucks creativity out of everything. I agree with using AI if it is to create background scenery or maybe make better CGI, which for some reason it's gotten worse in the past 20 years and everything's dark because of the rendering process, etc. But when it comes to creativity, like, I feel like Hollywood is already in such a pit of despair of non-creative people, and this would just make it worse because it makes their jobs even easier.
Yeah, I think the next generation that comes up is they're going to really have to focus education around creativity and things like that. Right now, the education system is kind of train you to sit still, not use your imagination. Imagination is maybe the most critical tool the next generation will have. I think we're living in the age of a forgotten generation here. And I think this generation is really going to be the forgotten generation, especially they're going to be handed tools like AI. They're going to dumb themselves down even further. But eventually you will see that generation come up, which I think will embrace creativity and hard work and work ethic. We've seen a lot of generations of extreme progressiveness. Now with Generation Alpha, we're seeing this new generation kind of embrace traditional values and
but
things like
they're
that.
also, Gen Alpha is also coming in hot in terms of they've been growing up around screens and media for so long that I feel, what would you call it? Like the way they behave, their behavior is becoming really odd and weird. And there's a lot of teachers, for example, on TikTok speaking up about it, especially in the States, where manners have been completely forgotten about and some values have also been completely forgotten about. So if they can come back and embrace more conservative and actual values because they've been tired of what everybody tells them in school and everybody tells them in like their daily lives and through their media, maybe they will want to create
but I'm not
media
really
as it used to be.
I'm not really focused on Gen Alpha. What I'm saying is Gen Alpha is going away from the trend. You would have expected generation after generation after generation. You would have thought Gen Alpha would have went in the same footsteps. They've completely broken away. Now, that's not to say with AI and technology.
Gen Alpha is still pretty young.
But that's not to say with everything that's what it's going to be in Gen Alpha. But it is saying generations do tend to break, and sometimes they can learn from the mistakes of the generations past.
Millennials didn't learn anything. They learned how to be pains in the butt. Fletcher Williams, I Suck at Games channel says, smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. We watch him all the time on WDW Pro.
Yes.
So
thank you.
That's the most famous person we've ever had watch the show.
Yes. So thank you.
Okay, why don't we go into Ryan Reynolds here? I'm kind of burying the Vin Diesel lead a little bit because I have some CD details that I don't want to get throttled for by YouTube censors.
So you want to go? Okay.
We'll go to Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and then the lead story with Vin Diesel.
Sure. So Ryan Reynolds, R-rated live-action CGI comedy Animal Friends moves to summer 2026. Film news and brief.
Yeah, and this has everything to do with the Blake Lively the Blake Lively lawsuit. This is having a bad rub on Ryan Reynolds. It affects Blake Lively in a negative way, but the power dynamic or the fame dynamic in that relationship is Ryan Reynolds, and I'm actually surprised on how much it's affecting his career and how involved he was in this and how many actual people were involved trying to steal that IP from Justin Baldoni. Now, Candace Owens did a great series of episodes on the background with this, and she came to the same conclusion. I don't really like feminist Justin Baldoni either, but he's totally right in this situation. And the more that came out of this and the more transparency Baldoni put forward, the more people came over to his side, even if they didn't like him.
Mm-hmm. And do you want me to read a little bit more?
Yeah, why don't we read a little bit of this?
So Ryan Reynolds fans will need to wait a little longer to meet the funny
but it's kind of funny. It's called Animal Friends and it's rated R.
As the upcoming movie is getting pushed back to next year, and it's ending up like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively were the animals of their friends with the whole Taylor Swift situation. Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures moved the project from its scheduled October 10th release to May 1st. And they didn't really say why.
Well, and
they're still saying it has potential for box office success, but
yeah, I mean, if it's a good movie, it's a good movie. But the amount of cancellations and how cancellations are affecting movies right now, and the zone Blake Lively's in, Ryan Reynolds isn't quite where she's at, but he's definitely drifting into that cancellation zone right now. So it's going to be interesting what happens with that.
And especially after they try to kind of make it into a joke at the SNL thing, and he tried to come out and still be this like persona that is self-deprecating, but the audience wasn't having it. So now that he's, for example, suggesting that he wants to make an R-rated Star Wars, I think people are taking him a little bit more seriously. And I've said it once again, Disney is losing. It's one of its only potential still leading men with this. So and Pedro Pascal, I mean, eventually, hopefully this stuff will come out about him and they'll lose him as well because he doesn't have leading man potential.
Well, they need to delay this as much as possible because they just need to come to a settlement, drop the charges, come to an out of court settlement, let this thing die. Maybe even reconcile with Justin Baldoni in the public eye, and the studio would, I think, eat some of that cost.
And let people forget. I mean, after 6 months, a year, people will mostly forget. And the ones that liked Ryan Reynolds, and if he can come back and, do his jokes and do his self-deprecating humor, then people will forget. But right now it's too fresh for anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So why don't we go into a little bit of Blake Lively? And I made the correction last night, but I'll make the correction again today. There was an article I presented yesterday. By the time our night show rolled around, that article was shown to be completely false, or at least they wrote it on false information. And that was...
They wrote it on Blake Lively information.
Yeah.
On her.
Blake Lively was probably the source for that article. Basically, it said that she wasn't going to drop the defamation charges or the emotional distress charges, which were her strongest charges in the lawsuit, although the whole thing was weak. Now that she's dropped that part of the lawsuit, I expect the whole thing to kind of fall apart. It would, I don't know. I don't know if Baldoni even wants a settlement at this point because he has a billionaire backer kind of backing his lawsuit. I think they want to make a point on this.
Yes. And he has been able to, the whole website with all of the evidence that they published and the fact that he's kind of I think he's gotten way more fans out of this than he would have ever done out of It Ends With Us. So this is actually better for him and his career, I would even say.
Well, people are going to be watching what his next project is and the project after that. So can't come out of this very well.
Fletcher Williams says, her source is very strong, Blake Lively's source. That's because she loves to leak stuff to the...
Oh, her best friends are New York Times reporters and everything else. It's just ridiculous.
And I mean, they do say it's good to know who your friends are. And I'm sure she was trying to get all her dragons in place. But yes, Blake Lively can't refile emotional distress claims against Justin Baldoni. Court rules. The ruling follows a dispute over whether the actress has to turn over medical records. He wanted her to. She didn't want to. Because obviously maybe they're not even there or they don't exist.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting when Justin Baldoni does come out with his next few feature films. If he's a little bit more quiet about the feminism thing, he may have a huge conservative or traditional following behind him, which normally wouldn't be. But right now,
Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly, they've helped him, move up in the conservative space. I don't know if he wants that, but...
Well, yeah, I don't know if he wants that either, but he kind of has it. And I think if he can notice what the shift is in the culture right now, if he just is a little bit more quiet about politics and issues like feminism, he might do fairly well for himself. I think he'll do fairly well any which way.
Yeah. So. And I mean, he has his own studio company and stuff. So do you want me to read a little bit just to clarify the case?
Yeah. Why don't we read a little bit, because yesterday that was the headline story.
Yeah. Fletcher Williams says, her sources, trust me, bro. Or sis, because apparently she's such a feminist. Lively's motion is denied based on her representation that the relevant claims will be withdrawn, and the judge ordered that it cannot be redone. It used to say that later she could have refiled at a later stage, but now the judge said no, because essentially they'd have to also agree with Baldoni would have to agree with that. Baldoni challenged the move, arguing that Lively's lawyers, when she tried to withdraw it without prejudice, to abandon the claim, he stressed that the actress is refusing to turn over her medical records, preventing him from disputing arguments that his alleged misconduct caused her emotional harm. She will continue on with the other ones, but again, it's very evident.
But I'm wondering what's in those medical records now, and I can't be the only one.
Nothing. That's what's in them.
Well, no, she may have a lot of prescription drugs and things like this. Rumors are swirling around Ryan Reynolds right now as well. So
that's all. Yeah. Conjecture.
But there was something else I was going to say. Oh, what really turned me kind of on Baldoni's side, because I was against him in the beginning because all of his feminists talked, but when they put him in the basement at his own movie premiere with, like, that's crazy. But you've seen everybody in the movie flock to him, and they went to the basement with him, which was
the actual staff.
And production crew, which was great on them. Okay, let's go into the headline story, and this is Vin Diesel.
Quickly before we move on, Fletcher still says, can we file an emotional distress against Blake Lively, asking for a friend? I mean, and
Well, if we were in the UK, what's that?
Oh, yeah.
I keep
in the
forgetting.
UK now you can file, you can get someone arrested for anxiety if they cause you anxiety.
Yeah, so we do a little bit of politics, especially on our night show. We were doing a clip and a series of stories about in the UK, you can file somebody against somebody if they post something online and it causes you anxiety, which is crazy.
Stress.
Yeah.
Or emotional distress.
So, I mean, it's not too far off to think a fan could
eventually maybe
file charges.
But it's insane. And I used to like Blake Lively because I did grow up on Gossip Girl.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was, I like Blair Waldorf more than Serena van der Woodsen, but still, I mean, I never
knew who she was. I knew her tangentially through Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. And I mean, their whole relationship also shows a little bit the people they are. Mm-hmm. It supposedly, allegedly started through cheating on Scarlett Johansson. So, main story, Vin Diesel gets 4 claims dismissed in assistant's disgusting abuse lawsuit.
Okay, and I used to really, really like Vin Diesel. He's making a series of bad choices with the movies he's made. I first watched him with Pitch Black. I absolutely loved Pitch Black. I loved the anti-hero narrative, everything like that. He was kind of mysterious in that, so I really watched every movie that came out after that, and it was just a series of bad decisions other than Fast and the Furious, and they've kind of overplayed that IP to now they're superheroes rather than street racers.
Didn't they go to space at some point? I never followed the series.
They're doing all kinds of crazy things. I'm surprised Vin Diesel isn't a female by now.
I mean, it's easy to put a wig on him because,
Oh, yeah.
baldness.
Well, let's read a little bit about this. And these charges may have been dismissed, but there have been rumors swirling around Vin Diesel for well over a decade now about...
and this is all alleged.
And this is all alleged, but there is a lot of reports over the past decade, and I followed his career fairly closely. A lot of people suspect that he may have moved to Brazil specifically. A lot of children are gathered around him at times.
And that's what we will say.
We'll say that on YouTube for the censors. And why don't we read a little bit of this?
That's all alleged as well. But Vin Diesel gets 4 claims dismissed in assistant's disgusting abuse lawsuit. Vin Diesel got a court to throw out 4 employment discrimination claims against him on Tuesday, but still faces allegations of assault, battery, and wrongful termination brought by a former assistant. The assistant, Asda Jones, sued Diesel in 2023, alleging that he had pinned her against a wall in a hotel suite and pleased himself in front of her. The incident allegedly occurred in 2010, which would ordinarily put it beyond the statute of limitations. But in 2023, Governor Newsom signed the Assault, Abuse, and Cover-Up Accountability Act, which revived certain expired claims of assault, bad stuff dating back to 2000.
And this is those Trump laws that we're talking about where they specially created laws to extend when they can press charges against people in New York. The first person prosecuted by that was Trump. And then I think they went after Weinstein after that. And then I think that law was reformed in New York State, if I'm not mistaken.
But this was in California.
Yeah, I know, but other states followed suit. So once they set the precedent, they kind of carry the laws over to other states.
Mm-hmm. But then, do you think this one's actually falling through the cracks, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably a lot bigger things with Vin Diesel, and I think he's probably not doing that stuff in the U.S. That's why he's in Brazil. But I mean, again, these are just allegations and a lot of rumors I've seen over the years, and it's a shame because I really, really did used to like Vin Diesel a lot, and the fact that he's such a bad actor, I don't know why I liked him so much.
Yeah.
I think he really won me over with Pitch Black. I was a young man, and it represented masculinity at the time. Yeah.
Which doesn't.
And there wasn't a lot at that time of real masculine heroes. I mean, I grew up in the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, action heroes like this. And then there was a fall off after that generation. Kurt Russell, yeah. And then Vin Diesel, I was hoping was the revitalization of that. But
I think they tried with Fast and Furious, but I don't know. They
just kept cashing in on that IP. Well, I think Vin Diesel, I don't know if he owns it or what, but he's highly connected to that.
I'm sure he's a person.
He's making all the decisions on casting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
Now more insider news. Paramount fires WPP Media, its longtime agency of record, in cost-saving move amid Skydance merger review.
Yeah, and this Skydance Paramount merger is really being held up right now, and the government has to do a lot of approvals for these different mergers. So it's going to be interesting what's happening. They're in a really tough financial situation. They need this merger to happen. They're obviously trying to cut some of the fat off because this is going to take a while.
Yes, and in a move that blindsided many staffers, Paramount has fired its longtime media agency of record in cost-saving move as its proposed merger with Skydance Media continues to gestate. The abrupt change comes as Skydance and its private equity backer, Redbird Capital, are waiting in the wings to take control of Paramount, pending government approval of the $8 billion deal. Precisely who drove the agency decision is a matter of some dispute, according to sources, but Paramount's relationship with agencies primarily resides with John Halley, president of Paramount Advertising.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I mean, Trump is putting up these people in his administration to make Hollywood great again. It was Jon Voight, Sylvester Stallone, and Mel Gibson. I wonder if they're using those as go-betweens between the administration. It would be a good idea to use those people as that. So I really think it's being held up, and backdoor deals will have to be made, payoffs and things like this. I mean, this isn't out of the normal, especially in deals this big. It's just not going to make headlines, and it's going to be done privately, I think.
Thatcher Williams says, "Oh no, the I don't have friends, I got family" quote is gross now. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I don't want to hit him too bad because everything has been rumors about Vin Diesel, but there's been so many of them
also a lot of rumors about P. Diddy.
Well, there were so many rumors about Vin Diesel over the years, and he was never really up for cancellation. And he was always kind of beloved by Hollywood.
Yeah.
So the fact that these rumors keep emerging and they're in the same realm just makes me have real suspicion. Okay, let's go into Warner Brothers now.
So Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders vote against CEO David Zaslav's $52 million pay package in a symbolic rebuke.
And this is absolutely fantastic. I love this headline when I seen it because we reported on this a few weeks ago that he was up for $52 million salary package. Now, I will say this, though. I'm not a communist. I do love a capitalist system, but I do like how Elon Musk's contracts are set up where he has to hit certain targets for the company. So if the company succeeds, then he succeeds. But if you're giving somebody $52 million straight up front with no real incentive packages to make the company better, man, I'm glad the shareholders stepped in. Somebody had to organize this for them to really say no to this. I would actually, why don't we read a little bit and see what it said?
So the majority of Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders who voted at the company's 2025 annual meeting evidently believe CEO David Zaslav and other top executives are earning too much. At WBD's annual shareholders meeting held June 2nd, investors voted down a non-bidding advisory measure to approve the 2024 compensation packages of Zaslav and the company's other named executive officers, according to an SEC filing. Such a measure is referred to as say-on-pay vote, designed to give shareholders a voice in expressing their approval or disapproval of exec compensation.
Yeah, and I will say this, when you get a big name CEO with a lot of connections, he can bring a lot of money in for the production company, which they wouldn't normally have. But you have to hit earmarks and quotas and expand the business to show that you're actually worth that $52 million. To pay him that right off the bat would be ridiculous. I'm not even comfortable with paying $52 million in the first place, but I can understand a justification for it if they're growing the business. The underlying and the bottom line of the business.
And it's not like Warner Brothers has been doing anything terribly good lately.
No, they have been in big trouble as of late. So, and maybe I'll mention the Pedro Pascal story a little bit.
Which one?
The one you did one in English recently, but then different people that I follow, I noticed, did a story as well.
Well, I did the first one in Spanish the beginning of last week.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
It's been almost a week and a half, 2 weeks now. So you were one of the first to report it, but you reported it in Spanish. So,
but
the English video is just not getting any rub because our English channel is where none of our subscribers are at. Yeah. We started by living in Canada. We fled Canada to move to Mexico.
I'm from Mexico. I'm Mexican. I lived in Canada for 13 years. That's where we met. And then, the government crossed all
all the red lines during the jibby jab era. So from Mexico, you at least get freedom through chaos here, which is kind of great. But we were forced to turn that channel, and the beginning of that channel was actually English, and we were going to the border showing the Freedom Convoy and things like that. In Vancouver. Eventually we moved down to Mexico, and it wouldn't promote our content outside of Mexico.
To English speakers.
So we forced to turn that channel to a Spanish only channel, but it worked very well and we got a lot of subscribers. But I don't speak Spanish, so we had to make an English channel. So that's why we're here. And anytime we make content for this channel, it really just doesn't get pushed out.
Because now we're in Mexico, so it's the opposite problem.
But we do 3 shows daily, so it's a lot of good practice because I used to hate being on camera.
Yeah, I got used to it a bit faster, but... Yeah.
That first video we did at the Freedom Convoy in Canada at the border, we went there and filmed it, and then we were too nervous to even be on camera. We went home, did a voiceover. We must have recorded that voiceover 50 times, and I was like, we're not doing this. And finally I was like, screw it, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then we evolved from there.
Yes, and then, I mean, at that time, we were also both working a lot to save up enough money to be able to come down here.
Well, that was 4 years. I worked 110 hours a week, 4 jobs in order to have the money to, number one, buy some of the production equipment because my back was going out, and I had always done mining, oil work, taught jiu-jitsu, stuff like that, and I knew my physical capabilities were going to be gone, and I wanted to make a career transition.
And we were working, we were both saving up and working, doing everything we could to leave. And again, luckily I am Mexican and I'm from here, so we could return. But we were also working, we do a lot of mistakes on lives and stuff, and we always say that. Rafa always highlights them every time they happen. But we did work for a little bit, at least in the film industry, but in a very specific field. So we're still learning how to do it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get back into the pop culture stories.
Fletcher Williams says, Snow Mexican? Yes, a lot of people never believe I am Mexican, but I am. And I was thinking, I was actually telling you today, I did a video about fake Latinos in Spanish.
Oh, that was
about actors that pretend to be Latinos, but they were born in the U.S., have never gone to the country they say they're from, and their ancestors might have been from there, but they have no connections really. They just don't want to be American, so I'll probably do that one in English.
Yeah, I always make fun of you for being a white Mexican, though.
And Fletcher Williams says, you guys' production value is great. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We did learn some stuff, but...
Yeah, through failure.
Exactly.
A million failures, you eventually learn to do it right.
Yes.
Or somewhat right.
Yesterday, we broke a light.
Oh, my God. And you didn't tell me. And then I was like,
well, it fell over.
Why isn't this light working? She's like, oh, it fell last night. Didn't you hear it? And I'm unscrewing the light bulb, and it just burst on me.
Yes.
Okay.
It almost caused an electrical power failure.
Let's go into this California story about TV tax credits.
So California legislature approves film and TV tax credit bills, sans $750 million funding expansion for now.
Yeah, and we've been reporting a lot about this. There's a lot of film industry insiders from Hollywood coming out talking about how the film industry is kind of fleeing Hollywood, and they're kind of desperate to keep people around. And we used to work for the film union in Vancouver, so I know a lot about the Vancouver film industry and the way Vancouver and Canada is able to expand their film industry, and they actually film more in Vancouver than they do Hollywood. Most of it's TV, but is through tax credits and the dollar. So a typical TV production will get 30% back with tax credits if it films in Vancouver, and then it gets another 25 to 30% back through dollar inflation, meaning when they exchange the American dollars for the Canadian. So it's a 60% savings right off the top. Vancouver is also very attractive to film for studios because they have a William White's, which is, they have these in certain strategic cities like Hollywood, like Vancouver. I believe Georgia has one as well. And it's basically a rental house for all the production equipment, and it can be written off and things like this.
Yes. And in Vancouver, they also get, what Vancouver does to attract the film industry usually is allow them to, getting permits is very easy, especially if you're a big production. If you're a small one and you're trying to get permission to film at the art gallery or something, we tried once, it's impossible. But for big production houses, they allow them to do essentially play with the city and play with the forests whenever and wherever they want. I was stuck in a forest one time for 12 hours.
Yeah, we were part of the teams. Well, I started with Teamsters 155. That's the security union, but I also did non-union films for grip, lighting, and camera. Mm-hmm. The thing was, we used to have access to the Teamsters rolls, so I can see everything filming in Vancouver. It got cut off like 2 weeks ago. Have you checked yours? No. Yeah, I don't have access to it anymore. So I was constantly checking it, and the film industry has completely died in Canada, at least the last time I was able to check, which was like 2 weeks ago. So with these tariffs coming in and things like that, even the threat of it is really hurting the film industry within Canada. But
I was going to say, in Hollywood, it is very hard for them to get the same kinds of permits for filming, even if they're big production houses, especially for the more indie ones. But I have been hearing a lot of people speaking out about how California and Hollywood has made it so basically impossible for anybody that wants to actually make a film in Hollywood. And that's why they go outside of that.
Well, as brainwashed as Canadians may be with their last election, they are very polite. So when you are filming in the city, they're very accommodating to film crews and stuff like that. I used to have to ask people to walk the other way, things like this. And they're just very generally interested. And yeah, it's a nice filming atmosphere. The public doesn't get in the way. Where in LA, a lot of insiders come out and say, oh, they're expected to have payoffs. People have blowhorns on the street, so you can't film until you give them money. Once they give money to one person, another person comes out with a blowhorn. So it's it could be an extra $10,000 for the day shoot. And you already have the crew, the trucks, everybody there. So it's not like you're not going to make the payoff.
Yeah, and we've seen, I mean, we haven't done anything here with the film industry, but we've seen here in Mexico as well, filming happening like sometimes when we walk around, and they also seem to be able to do it wherever and whenever they want.
Yeah, but it's non-unionized here, which is a little bit different.
Well, there are unions. There's an actors union, and I do know Netflix, for example, has its own big production studio now here in Mexico as well. So I mean, at least they have opportunities to do content outside of Hollywood, but.
Yeah, and I will say some of these government protections that like countries like Canada brought in, they have to have at least, I believe it's 30% of content on the streaming service needs to be filmed in country and things like this. So Netflix built a studio in Canada. Even if the film industry contracts, the fact that they do have a studio there is going to help them produce that 30% of content and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into the next one. And this one was actually interested me quite a lot because we had previously reported on this, and I thought this was a great idea, but it got knocked down by the government.
Las Vegas studio proposal backed by Sony and Warner Brothers dies in Nevada legislature. Proposal to build a movie studio in Las Vegas died in the Nevada legislature on Monday night as lawmakers refused to grant $95 million annual subsidy. Sony Pictures and Warner Brothers had teamed up to support Summerlin Studios, a 31-acre facility that would have 10 sound stages, a bill to subsidize the project. AB 238 passed the state assembly last week, but died in the Senate on Monday.
Yeah, and that doesn't make sense. A $95 million annual subsidy. I could understand a upfront subsidy because when you build stadiums and things like that for sports teams, the government will very often shoulder a lot of that cost because it creates jobs and brings a boost to the economy. But when you want to have an annual subsidy of $95 million, that's a big ask. Mm-hmm. But Hollywood is really starting to branch out into different regions, and not just different regions of the United States, but all over. It's becoming very decentralized. So when we first reported on that, I thought it was a good idea and it was going to happen. The problem with Nevada is a lot of that stuff would have to be filmed indoors. It's hard to make Las Vegas look like something other than a desert.
And also the heat.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only certain amounts you can even film.
Exactly. But a lot of things are filmed indoors, so it could complement others if they have sub-studios in different regions. Mm-hmm. That being said, Vancouver does work very well, even though it does rain a lot. It's always cloudy, which actually helps for filming and stuff like that. It's like a natural diffuser of the light. Yes. Plus, you can make Vancouver look like almost anywhere in the United States. There's different regions of downtown and just outside of the city, there's different regions that look dramatically different. Mm-hmm. You throw an American flag and take down the Canadian flag. Yes. It looks American. At every film set we were on, they always took down the Canadian flag, put up the American one because everything's being shot for an American audience.
Mm-hmm. And with Trump saying that he wants to bring back Hollywood to the U.S., I think they do need to expand, just moving away from just California and just New York to other states that might actually want to give them the tax breaks that they were getting elsewhere, especially for TV shows and stuff.
Yeah, and
that's filmed in Canada is mostly TV shows.
And there's a lot of capture within the industry, especially the Hollywood industry, the financing through the CCP and things like that. So I like to see new grassroots, new grassroots studios kind of pop up. We were talking about, what's the one, Sofia
Vergara?
Yeah. She was worth 181 million, and she said she wouldn't date anybody that makes less money than her. Mm-hmm. And she's starting to she is past her prime, but she still looks okay. Yeah. But eventually, if she wants to transition to something else, she's not going to be able to rely on her looks forever. She has 181 million. Maybe try to start a studio. She does have the connections, things like that.
And she's actually Latina, so she could actually do something for her.
I would love to see actors.
People.
I love to see actors and people that have the money, have the connections to start their own small studios. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper to break through into a small production company and stuff like this.
Yeah, and and we'll talk about it a bit later, I guess, but all the equipment you even need is getting more and more accessible. So if they started backing people, creatives that were usually maybe don't even have an opportunity to produce stuff, and they started looking for these creators on YouTube, on RUMBLE, on other places other than just the connection.
Well, and a small studio is more versatile to adopt or not adopt AI, to do different things and try different things.
And I know, for example, Reese Witherspoon and a lot of other actresses, Margot Robbie, have tried to start their own production houses, but they're producing bad.
Okay, and I just wanted to mention this next story. I haven't actually watched the documentary, but it was done by TMC Studios, who's now making documentaries. They use the voice that they have for trailers. They use him for the entire thing. It's actually I like that voice, and it worked well for a documentary style. It seems well produced, but it's exposing you did have an article on it.
Yeah, so this is from TMZ. It says 9/11, the fifth plane, what the government doesn't want you to know, now available on YouTube.
Yeah, so I'm going to watch this.
TMZ investigate.
It looks interesting. Supposedly there was a fifth plane. Tower 7 was never hit by a plane, and it looked like there was never a fire in the building. They claim that's how it collapsed. I always thought there was only two governments that really benefited from 9/11. One was the U.S. government. The other one was, it's a government with a blue and white flag in the Middle East. And they had major benefits because based upon 9/11, they were able to implement some wars in the Middle East. And that narrative's coming back up now with Iran and that country in the Middle East.
And also implement, oh my God, my head doesn't work.
It never works.
Shut up. A further security state.
Yeah, and
the Patriot Act.
Yeah, the Patriot Act.
A way to control and remove freedoms away from people that they used to have before. But it is interesting. I mean, TMZ, technically they do a lot of investigative work. So.
They do a lot of investigative work, and they got a lot of people on the ground and stuff like this. So they could have a lot of documentary footage. I didn't know they had a studio. This just randomly came up. I started watching the trailer. It looked okay, but I think TMZ having a studio is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean,
because they do
have the offices.
They need to utilize a lot of that footage they got. These people are getting paid. They have the footage, so it's easy. It's a lot easier for them to put original footage for a documentary together.
Yeah, and maybe it's good that they're reporting on stuff other than celebrities' mental health breakdowns.
And this is way different than celebrity gossip.
Yeah, and they do have I'm guessing they do have the skills because they do it for other stuff. So it's good to see them transition it to more newsy reporting.
Okay, let's go into, we'll do a couple semi-political stories about Vancouver. It's mainly grocery prices and stuff like that. We're originally from Vancouver. So the direction Canada is going compared to the United States is very interesting. But before we get into this, I do just want to mention the South Korea had an election, and the Liberal candidate, who's really a communist candidate, won that election. He's now outwardly saying he's going to begin to align with China and North Korea, which is very interesting. That being said, I was watching a lot of commentators talk about that South Korean election, and they're like, well, we need democracy, we need free speech, this and that. These are not Western values now that they're aligning with China. I said, other than America, a lot of these countries, such as the EU, are going away from Western values, away from capitalism. They want to hinder free speech and things like this. So the fact that South Korea is now geared to go towards China, maybe that's a breakdown of Western values in general.
And maybe it's, the division of the axis of power within the world, I would say.
Yeah, and I say
a multipolar world, as people say.
Yeah, I would say if you're in the Chinese sphere of influence physically, it may be best to align with China. I know Americans might not want to hear that, but also if you're in the American sphere of influence, like Canada, like maybe you should align with America. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's. Did you have the beef prices and stuff like that?
Yes. Oh, and Fletcher Williams says, in Vancouver, the forecast isn't rain or shine. It's rain or drizzle. It's rain forever, essentially, except in the summer for like 5 weeks.
Well, and then not just rain. They have fire. A lot of man-made fires. 90% of the fires are man-made, and they say, it's climate change. Yes. And they refuse to do controlled burns or manage their forest because they want to always have that narrative of climate change. Yes. The amount of Canadian propaganda I was forced to endure and then research and find out it's completely false. The fires are one of the big propaganda points for the Canadian government.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into these grocery prices now real quick.
Speaking of Canada, this is coming from Mike, Midnight Rider. So here we see the price at an IGA. We actually lived across from an IGA in Vancouver, in downtown Vancouver. So for a barbecue cut, it's $50 for one kind of big steak, but still for a is that a T-bone?
Yeah,
I'm bad at knowing.
It's a T-bone.
Yes, it's a T-bone. They call it a barbecue cut. And then in the US, it's $14.84 for essentially, I can't see the weight, but almost the same weight. But that being said, even with the price conversion, so it would be $3 for every $10. So that would be about an extra $5. So it should got 20.
It would be 20.
Yeah, I can make the conversion.
But when I was researching this story, I was looking into other things, and a lot of Canadians are going across the border again to get basic goods. So carrots sold in Canada.
So right now 5013 is $36.84.
Yeah.
$36.84 US dollars.
Yeah, more.
Actually more.
Carrots sold in Canada by the same company and then sold in an American market. The Americans actually sell it for cheaper, the exact same product manufactured in Canada, which is crazy. Canada has this weird thing where they have interprovincial taxes, meaning it's kind of like a tariff between states, or in Canada, provinces, where it just ups the cost of everything, where the main trading partner for each individual province in Canada is the United States. So they usually don't have any extra tariff cost before Trump anyway. Mm-hmm. So Canadian products are actually sold cheaper in the States than they are in their own country of manufacturing. Let's go to the next one, where it's just a quick list of food price inflation in Canada. So you're seeing sirloin strips increase by 34%, another 33% for other meats. And they're trying to, when they said you're going to live in the pod, eat bugs, and they don't want you to eat meat, they're taking this seriously in Canada. Yeah. Like, we were paying $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment by the time we left. Mm-hmm. It was insane. I was working full-time just to pay for groceries and rent by the end.
Same. And this is coming from the food professor, but yes, top grocery price increases in Canada since the start of 2025. So beef, 33%, oranges, 26%, apples, 18%. And it's just impossible to live in Canada. It is impossible. The food prices, when we used to work on set, I used to bring food home just because food is a huge cost. Rent is insane. A 1-bedroom apartment, if you want to buy it, costs $1 million in Vancouver. You're never going to own a home in that. And the government now, they're not interested in lowering home prices. No. They want to maintain home prices. And then their solution to the housing crisis is to build these little pod houses, literally, which is crazy because everybody made fun of the government for building pod houses. They're making pod houses, and the government's going to retain ownership and rent it to the people at a discounted rate. But then that does away with ownership. And having any kind of lifestyle outside of just working and begging to be able to pay your rent is insane and impossible. And just when we moved here, it felt crazy to see like all the ways we could get food and the kinds of food that we could get that in Canada were, like, you have the banana comparison.
The banana was 3 cents here. Where before I left Canada, I was paying attention to food prices. It's even higher now. It was $1 for one banana, which is crazy.
Yes. I'm guessing a lot of Canadians, the way they are now, they'd be willing to get, we were talking about that jibby jab or that genetic modification that they want to do on people so they become allergic to meat. I'm guessing if you can't afford meat, you might as well get that so you become allergic to it and don't want it. But meat is one of the best food sources in the world. And it's just insane that it's impossible to feed yourself and your family in a country that promises that they're going to allow you to do so.
Okay, let's go into the last story here before we get into a little bit of production talk.
And Fletcher Williams says, the fact that meatless burger is on the list is the most new Canada thing ever. Exactly. And Canada used to be, I mean, not a big producer.
When we first moved to Canada, I was born in Canada, but my parents died when I was young, so I lived most of my time in the United States. But when I was 27, I moved back, and that was in about 2011, and you moved there from Mexico around the same time. It was actually normal, and it actually felt great. But that was right at the time the government started destroying the country. But it took like 6 years before you started to see the results. And now it's a dystopia. We talk on our night show about the MAID program. This is medical assisted in dying, and how they've made it legal for children to.
They want to make it.
They want. Yeah, for children to have this service without informed consent from the parents. Yes. It's nuts. Anyway, I don't want to get too bogged down into politics. Yeah. This is just a quick graph I want to show about the immigration in Canada. Mm-hmm. It is crazy. And it was 1.2 million. Just the other day, they said, they're going to only allow 5% in, and they're going to cut the amount of immigrants. If you calculate what 5% is, that's actually 2 million. So they're going to double the amount of immigrants this year. They're kind of doing what the UK is doing. They're talking about both sides of their mouth. We're going to decrease immigration. We're not going to allow any more immigrants in. That's what Keir Starmer said the other day. The day he said it was the biggest flux of migrants into that country ever by boat. It was over 500 boats, over 1,200 migrants in a single day.
And I think more and more people in Canada, they'll never learn and they'll never realize it, but more and more people are realizing that it's not just like bad for the people that are already in the country, but for the migrants too, because the opportunities are not there. I mean, in Canada, a lot of, especially you used to work with a lot of people from India, but also a lot of people I worked with from China were coming and telling me and you that they moved to Canada thinking it would be this great opportunity, and they felt cheated and lied, and now they wanted to go back to their home countries because they couldn't find actual jobs, they couldn't find jobs in their field, which they were promised. So it's not just complaining about migration, it's not complaining about just for the people that are already in the country, but the ones that are coming that are being lied to.
Well, I was one of the first
opportunities.
People in Canada. It's a huge liberal bubble, especially in Vancouver specifically. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit more traditional, a little bit more conservative, but I had all working class jobs, and but the last 4 years I was there, I had 4 jobs, and 90% of the people that worked at these jobs were from India. So I worked with them. I was good friends with them, but they were all disillusioned by the lie they were sold. Once they got there, most of these people already owned houses. They had to have money to save up to come to Canada. Before they decided to come to Canada, they had already saved money in their own country.
And they sold a lot of things off as well.
Yeah, but when I would talk about migration and stuff, and that this is not a good idea for Canada to other people at my night job when I was working at the bar, they would look at me like I was racist. And I'm like, I'm talking to Indians at my other jobs. They're the ones telling me this.
Yes.
Like, I'm not the one.
Yeah. And that's how I felt too. Like, I was promised all these things and then it never materialized. So.
Okay, let's go into, this, you can just see the graph here. There's no other country in the world that has a graph like this. This is insane. Yes. And they're trying to artificially manipulate the GDP of the country. That's what it is. Canada has one of the lowest GDPs of a 2% growth every year of all the G7 countries. And this is just to manipulate their statistics so that people don't catch on what's really going on in the country.
Mm-hmm. And Fletcher Williams says, Jibby Jab is the name of my new band called. And he also says, Paul Chato has merch that says, make Canada mediocre again. You guys should do make Canada sensible again, or make Canada tell the truth again.
Well, the only thing that's going to make them sensible, and the one thing that makes me hopeful for Canada, and I'm a big supporter of it, and I probably couldn't say this if I was still living in Canada.
Yeah.
I'm a huge supporter of the Alberta separatist movement, and I really do hope they separate and become their own little nation. If they want to join the United States after, they can, but they need to take this opportunity to do that. Canada's the only country in the world that has it in their charter. That if the citizens sign a petition, an individual province can separate and become their own nation.
Yes,
this happened in Quebec, even though it failed. So I'm really hoping this does happen. Alberta has been the doormat of Canada for decades now. They take all these remittance payments from the oil and gas, which they say is evil, but they'll take all the money from it and redistribute it to all the other provinces. They won't allow Alberta to actually drill for oil on a big basis and things like this. So, okay, let's go into, I always get going when it's politics.
Fletcher Williams says Alberta is not playing. Hopefully they're not.
Hopefully they're not, but...
And that could send, I think that would be one of the few things that could maybe send a shockwave and make Canadians that have been essentially indoctrinated by the government and who are passive sheep realize that the things are not the way they think and they've been sold for. And
every time I talk about Alberta, it's very important not only to Albertans, but Americans and everybody worldwide. This changes the paradigm between government and its citizens. If the citizens take control, say we're unhappy with our government, we're going to separate, we're going to form our own government, that now puts the people in power over the government. And it really can set a precedence, not only for Alberta, but other provinces could potentially break off. Places like Greenland could break off from their masters over in the EU. Who owns Greenland again?
Greenland.
No, Greenland doesn't own Greenland. It's an EU country that it's a territory of. But either Greenland and other countries could like really implement their sovereignty and
Kingdom
things like
of
this.
Denmark. It's an autonomous territory for the Kingdom of Denmark.
Okay, let's go into a little bit of production talk.
Sure.
Calm down a little bit, I guess. Okay, so yesterday we talked about mics like this. These are great for podcast talking heads in your house because they're directional. If you do get a mic like this, make sure it is directional because when I talk here, the sound goes right in. But if I talk over here like this, you really can't hear it. What this does is if you have two people talking, you won't get an echo in the other person's microphone. That was annoying when we first started.
Yes.
That being said, we kind of talked about these mics yesterday. I'm going to talk a little bit about a omnidirectional microphone. That's a microphone that picks up all over. These are great for when you're doing interviews outside and stuff like this. And I was actually surprised. We had bought this mic. Let me disassemble it real quick. I kind of added this on. It comes
you can
like
put a sticker or something with your channel name or whatever.
Yeah, it comes like this, but this is the best mic that I've ever used for outdoor recording. It never fails. It always gets the recording. Before this, we were using this little mic here. And this is fine if you have time to sit up and make sure everything's perfect. But if you're at a protest or you're out trying to get an interview on the fly, you want something that's going to work every time, that's not going to clip, that you just know you have the recording. With this, I just push the button on the bottom. You get 40 hours of recording.
It's wireless.
It's wireless. It's 32-bit float. I can also connect it to my phone wirelessly, which is great. So this has never failed me. It's always gotten the best recording. Also, the ambient noise it picks up is phenomenal because it seems to isolate the voice, but it also picks up the environment, but the environment's not too loud. So you get this nice sense that you're actually there. With these,
that's from Rode, but we're not paid by anyone.
Yeah, but I really do like Rode because the products are cheap and they just tend to work with minimal interface.
Mm-hmm. And that's the Rode Interview Pro, correct?
Yeah, this one is the Rode Interview Pro. We were using this little mic before here, and there's different ones. This is DJI. We have the Rode ones as well. Mm-hmm. But before that other mic came out, we had a little thing like this, and you can plug it in.
Trying to grab the...
And with this, then you can put the top over top of it and you have a microphone. The issue with this is when you're out and about, this top falls off all the time. So you're going to end up without a top. Mm-hmm. And it's not just us, because every content creator that has one of these uses these mics, usually without this, because this is falling off and they've lost it at some point. Also, if you do have this top, what ends up happening is every time you're about to interview somebody, you have to take this off, press the button, make sure the light comes on, put it back on and say, okay, let's go. Where with this one, you have it, you can go. The other difference between these two is when I'm interviewing somebody with this microphone, this is the little mic here, I'm constantly have to point it at them, point at me, point to them. And if you don't point it at them, you're not going to pick up a good audio recording. This microphone's amazing because all you do is you don't actually need to point it. You just put it between you and the subject and it gets perfect audio. It picks them up. It picks you up. Everything is perfect.
So I was looking for the actual model. I wasn't sure which ones you were going to talk about, but so the best one for outside would be Interview Pro. And then the ones that most people have are the Wireless Go 2 or Wireless Go 1 from Rode. Once again, we're not paid or anything. We just like to talk about production because when we started, we knew nothing.
Yeah,
and nobody really talks about those details. We notice about microphones, cameras, lighting.
And we kind of started backwards because my back was going out. And like I had said, I had done all physical jobs my whole life. I had a feeling I was only going to have a couple more years of teaching jiu-jitsu and doing construction work and bouncing. And I needed to figure out a career I can do. Mm-hmm. I was working in film a little bit. So I said, well, I'm going to try to build my own production company, which I built a small YouTube studio here. But I took all the money from those 4 years to save up to flee Canada, move to Mexico, and buy as much equipment as I could because I was very fearful that I wouldn't be able to work at some point. And I didn't know how to do anything with my mind. So now I'm having to use my mind with this, and it's a struggle, but it's working.
And Jonas J. Campbell, hi. Thank you for being here.
We got all kinds of new people. Usually there's one person watching us in the afternoon, and that's our number one fan called Rafa.
Yeah, and like 3. And Rafa's not here today, but Jonas J. Campbell, thank you. He's WW Pro, that place.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes. So he says, what's the model? Rode Interview Pro, and Fletcher Williams says you should add links to the model and get affiliate kickback from Amazon. Money, y'all.
We need to, but there's 2 of us doing it, and then we're doing as much as we can, adding all the stuff into the descriptions. Sometimes we can. This kind of came on the fly. Yesterday we were talking about this mic. Today I'm talking. I just wanted to kind of expand on the talk of microphones. Eventually we will, but we're still trying to get things organized. Running 2 channels, we were kind of forced into having our Spanish channel, which is our main channel, and then making an English channel because I can't speak Spanish. So
you're learning, but
we're really over. What would you say?
Yeah, so you do all the pre-production, all the lighting, camera work, audio, and I do editing. We used to do more edited videos in Spanish, like full-on edits, and like pre-recording. But now I'm just clipping the lives and kind of editing them down in Spanish because, again, there's 2 of us. Eventually, the plan is to clip stuff for this channel as well. But again, being in Mexico, it gets pushed out to a Mexican audience that doesn't speak English, so we have to figure that out too. But
I would say just for this is kind of advice for anybody that's thinking about doing a podcast. We started with politics. It's a very hard subject, and especially we started in Canada when cancellation and you could be arrested for things you said there. So it was very we were pushed to our limit, and we eventually left the country. But you don't necessarily have to do politics. And like I said yesterday, don't start with an audio-visual podcast. Just start with an audio podcast. All the important things you need to learn are actually in audio. If you have bad visuals but good audio, people will continue to watch you. But number 2, actually just learning to talk. Mm-hmm. I still hate it. It was so nerve-wracking in the beginning. I thought in my head, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
Everybody online, that makes it...
It's not easy.
It's not easy. And it's not easy to make your thoughts clear, concise, and not say, what?
Things like that, things like this.
And if you're looking at a visual and then you're not going to really pay attention to your audio. That's why our visual got better so much faster. Mm-hmm. I was obsessed with the visual for a long time. But the audio is actually the important thing. I would recommend just if you're thinking about doing anything on YouTube or anything else is to use your use your cell phone. Most of these microphones interface with the cell phone, which is great. And cell phones actually for protests, or if you're going to go out and interview somebody,
recording on the street,
cell phones work better because it just gets a usable image. Where I find if I take one of the bigger cameras, things can go wrong. There's too many settings. I'm not getting good footage.
And it takes a while, especially if you're just learning to use it. And cell phones now get, almost the same quality and even better sometimes than some cameras. And also the security reasons.
Yeah, that was the big thing. When you're taking footage with a camera, people are watching you, especially in a place like Mexico. You become a target and things like this. With a cell phone, nobody's even paying attention. It's a lot easier and less nerve-wracking to get what you need.
Yes. And then, so Fletcher says, hola, Jonas J. Campbell. And Jonas says, thanks. Hey, Fletch. Fletcher asks, how do you like the DJI mics? I don't like them, actually.
Yeah, the sound, we had the Rode mics, the wireless mics to begin with. If somebody's thinking about getting one, I may recommend the Rode Pro ones now because they have a 32-bit float. The sound sounds a little bit wiry.
What's a 32-bit float?
You can a 32-bit float is basically you're able to alter any clipping, so you'll never clip. You'll always have a usable file at some point. This one has the 32-bit float. The small DJI mic that we have here has a 32-bit float. Most newer mics now have 32-bit floats.
That one's right.
It's important, especially when you're in outdoor environments and you're interviewing somebody that's never been on camera. They may talk really loud. You're gonna have clipping and things.
And people
like
might be yelling in the background.
Yeah.
But also using your phone as a mic is.
But overall like DJI makes some phenomenal. It's not that this is bad. The Rode was just better, but the wireless
connection wise is better.
The connection wise with the DJI is great because I don't need a receiver. I can just go straight to my phone with this. DJI is great for like their action cams. We have two of their action cams, the little gimbal one and the actual one that's like a GoPro. Those are phenomenal. GoPro is
We've taken them out to protests here in Mexico.
Phenomenal.
And it's actually because we kind of attach them to our bodies just for safety and to film. But they actually don't get in the way if you're outside. And I do find that a lot of people that just use their phones, it's on a stick, especially on a selfie stick, it's easy for someone to grab it.
Also, we used to assist a gentleman by the name of Billboard Chris. He was against puberty blockers for children and things like this.
Yeah, mutilating children.
He's big now. He's got worldwide exposure. Yes. But we used to go film with him and help him out with editing and stuff and make his website. But he had one of those 360 action cameras and he didn't really know how to attach it to his body and stuff.
Yes. And it got knocked down a bunch of times. They still keep trying to get his phone from him. I just saw yesterday he was attacked. Where is he? I think in Denmark or somewhere like up over there in Europe. But yes, during protests and filming Billboard Chris, especially like following him around. At first, I was taking a gimbal, and it just became a little bit too much of a safety issue for people that were yelling or in the crowd. So then we kind of moved into using smaller things. The phone, he also uses a phone now.
Yeah, but the action cameras, if you can attach them to your body, if you're outdoors and things, even if that's not going to be your main footage, say you're going to use your phone for your main footage, just for security purposes, it's a good idea to have an action cam attached to your body if you're going to be in a versatile environment, let's say. Yeah.
And doing
or in an unsafe city in general.
And constant recording as well. That's something we learned as well. At first, we were just going and filming like little tiny clips for B-roll, which is just images. And then sometimes I would be like, oh, you didn't get this part, you didn't get that part. So it's always good to have a secondary camera or thing that's filming always, like constant filming, so you can find those bits, especially if something happens or something interesting you want to show that you didn't get on the main camera or the main phone.
And it's easy to find after, because if you have, let's say you have this microphone and you have a body cam attached to you, the body cam's constantly recording, but you just press this when you want to record. You can link it up later on, certain segments, so you can get rid of all of your other action footage. Say if you got 5 hours of footage, you don't want to scroll through that. So just by having your audio clips that are important to you on here, you'll be able to isolate the segments.
Yeah.
But I think we're talking a lot about equipment.
Yes.
So.
And then Jonas J. Campbell says, Fletcher puede decirte mi español es horrible. So Fletcher can tell you my Spanish is horrible. I mean, you can write.
It's better than me. And I live in Mexico.
Yeah, Guy.
I don't have time to learn Spanish. People keep getting on to me about it, but I'm constantly doing all this production shit. I don't have time.
Stuff. Yeah. And Fletcher Williams says, no manches, Jonas, sabes que eres el mero mero en español. And no way, Jonas, you know that you're the best at Spanish. And
tell them to check out your Spanish channel.
Yeah, so you can both go see Nat and the Guy in Español. That's where I speak in Spanish. That's where I do most of my stuff.
Yeah.
And where I did a lot of Spanish edited videos. That's where the English ones are.
Well, yeah, if you want to see our actual full history and I think it's very interesting. Our Spanish channel started in English. But you can see when we didn't have any production equipment, when we first started out, we didn't know how to edit. We didn't know how to do sound, but we kept all those videos up there to kind of show our progression and to kind of help other people and show our mistakes. So, yeah.
And it's not like that channel is huge, but gets a bit more traction than
it's got 8,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
8,700. I'm happy with that because every time we make a video with 8,700 subscribers, it has enough push from our subscriber base where it gets out to a little bit of a wider audience, where our English channel it doesn't have enough subscribers to really push our content out yet.
Mm-hmm. And Fletcher says the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 portable camera rocks.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I have to get the one. So that's this one. That's the one that mostly is attached to you. And I use that one that looks more like.
So yeah, with this one here,
it's all in Spanish. I can't find how to make it in English. But
anyway, just go over to the camera so they can see the camera. That camera actually can attach to your body as well. It works very well as a body attached camera. All the DJIs are so much better than even the small GoPro looking ones by DJI are better because their app interface works phenomenally. Mm-hmm. So when I'm operating that camera on my body or I want to check something, I'm using my cell phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Fletcher Williams says, I am subscribed to the Spanish channel. Thank you. Great work. But yeah, so this one, that's why sometimes it's hard to explain that this one's we started it out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to do English content on the Spanish one as well, but people were getting angry that we were speaking, why are you speaking English if it says Spanish? It just became easier to try to divide them and attract hopefully different audiences as well.
Yeah.
But we missed Rafa today.
Well, we had other people join us today, finally, for once.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're done for today. We have 3 shows daily, one at noon Central. Then with me, Nat's back on our other channel, Nat and Guy in Espanol. That's her show where she does solo. And then at 9:15, we're back here with Nat and the Guy on our main set.
Yes, on this channel at 9:15 Central Time. All of these are Central Time.
If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. If you don't watch WGW Pro or
Fletcher Williams, Jonas J. Campbell, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the support and for watching the Pedro Pascal video. I was really trying to get somebody to see it and talk about it because I think it's insane that he continues to victimize himself. And somebody has to take him, I guess, down a peg or at least tell him, hey, you're not the authority on victimization and refugee.
Yeah, but Pascal came up on that totem pole victim narrative, all that, and he did it for so many years. That's how he rose in Hollywood. So that's in his nature now. He's not going to be able to go away from it. Even if studios and his agents tell him not to do it, he's not going to be able to.
Mm-hmm. And Jonas J. Campbell says, that's a good call in my opinion about dividing the channels. Also says, you're too kind. And I hope the boost was helpful. Yes, thank you so much. And we'll see
you guys later tonight.
Yes.
Adios.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.